Good day, this is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Montreal, Canada for Reason to Resist on July 14th, 2026. Within the past 24 to 48 hours, the hot war on Iran has not only resumed, but it has escalated, and in at least two important respects. And I'll get into the nature of these two major escalations in the course of my report today. And stated briefly, they are as follows. First, Iran attacked U.S. military facilities in Oman, with whom it has been trying to reach an agreement on future management of the Strait of Hormuz. And second, after Saudi forces bombed the airport in Sana'a, Yemen, in the past 48 hours, Yemeni forces struck back inside Saudi Arabia. Now, before we get into it, please remember to like and share this video if you find it to be informative. If you're not already a subscriber to Reason to Resist, please do become one and help us to expand the reach of our unapologetic, on-the-ground resistance journalism. The other thing I should mention is I am wearing for the first time today during a recording some of our newly offered merchandise. This is one of the items on offer. And if you are in a position to support the expansion of our on-the-ground journalism, something that we think is extremely important for the alternative media space. It's all too rare amongst alternative media that they have the ability and willingness to do this kind of work on-the-ground journalism in the crime scenes of Western governments. If you can help us by purchasing some merchandise, we would greatly appreciate that. And you can figure out how to do that if you're interested by looking at the description to this video. So with that, let's get into it. As I mentioned at the outset, I'm back in Montreal now after having spent the better part of 10 days in Iran, primarily to cover the funeral of the martyred Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, but also, and I think most importantly, to talk about the attitude amongst Iranians to the now utterly failed negotiations with the United States, and to the resumption of war. And I think if you haven't seen our reporting from Iran over the past 10 days or so, please do check it out because it will reveal to you vitally important facts that you are not going to be getting from any corporate media outlet in the West. I can assure you of that. It's good to be back in Montreal. I have family and friends here, and I haven't been here in some time, but at the same moment, I must confess that I'm sad to have left behind the many wonderful friends I have made in Iran, and also comrades in Greece, where I have spent much of the last few months. In any case, let's turn now to the escalations in the war, the criminal war of aggression on Iran. Yesterday, an Iranian civilian aircraft attempted to transport to Yemen officials of the Ansarallah government in Sana'a who had attended the funeral of the martyred Supreme Leader of Iran. And as the aircraft, the civilian aircraft piloted by an Iranian, approached the airport in Sana'a, Saudi warplanes attacked that airport. And here you can see a statement issued by the Ansarallah Political Bureau about that attack. It reads, in a dangerous escalatory step, the criminal Saudi regime bombed Sana'a International Airport in an attempt to prevent our delegation from returning to their homeland, but it failed. The crime of targeting Sana'a International Airport constitutes a blatant act of aggression against our people, a flagrant violation of sovereignty and a clear breach of international laws and conventions. I can assure you that those are all correct statements of law. The targeting of Sana'a International Airport reflects the level of hatred and criminality harbored by the Saudi regime, backed by the United States toward our people. The attack comes within the framework of implementing the American desire to maintain the unjust blockade imposed on our people for more than 10 years. And by the way, that blockade has caused immense suffering, brought the population to the brink of famine several years ago, and in my view, constitutes evidence of genocidal intent by the United States, Saudi, and the United Arab Emirates against the people of Yemen. And the statement goes on and says, the policy of force, arrogance, and supremacy pursued by the Saudi regime, backed by the United States, will achieve no results, and its fate will be a failure, and so forth. If anybody was harboring any illusions that the Saudi autocracy is trying to play a passive role in this criminal war of aggression, not just against Iran, but the whole of the axis of resistance, I hope that this development will bring those illusions to an end. The Saudis are fully complicit and actively supporting the attempts, the criminal and genocidal efforts of the United States and Israel to destroy legitimate resistance to their brutal domination of the region. And I think that is now clear beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now, despite their efforts, and as the statement of Ansarallah indicated, the Saudi efforts to stop the civilian aircraft, it did land in Yemen, albeit not in Sana'a because of the damage inflicted on the airport. It landed rather in the Yemeni port city of Hodeidah. And here you can see a photograph of the civilian aircraft on the ground at that airport. The response of Ansarallah, as you can imagine, was swift and decisive. It began with Ansarallah publishing a video of airports in Saudi Arabia, which it considered to be legitimate targets as a result of this aggression. And here is that video. Now, I omitted to mention when I introduced that video that it's not just the airports that they're identified there as legitimate targets, but also Saudi oil infrastructure on the coast. I believe that's the Red Sea coast of Saudi Arabia, but it also might be infrastructure on the Persian Gulf coast of Saudi Arabia. So, and no one should doubt the ability of Ansarallah to strike any and all of those targets, because they have done that successfully in the past, targets within Saudi Arabia. And then very shortly after this statement was issued threatening retaliation, the Ansarallah forces published a video of missile launches towards the Saudi autocracy. And then a video emerged of an explosion at or near the Abha airport in Saudi Arabia. And here is one of those video clips. Again, if you listen carefully, you will hear an explosion in the distance. Now, there were reports of damage at Saudi airports, and here's a summary of those reports from the Telegram channel of Geopolitics Prime. Yemeni and regional media report that Ansarallah launched missile and drone strikes targeting the Abha International Airport in Saudi Arabia's Asir region, with reports claiming flights at the airport have been suspended. Regional outlets, including Iraq's Al-Had TV, reported explosions in Asir and said a missile struck the airport. They also cited a Saudi-led coalition spokesperson as claiming the incoming missiles were intercepted by air defenses. According to the same report, Saudi authorities have restricted the publication of photos and videos from Abha Airport following the incident. Riyadh has not issued an official statement on the reported attack or any damage to the airport. At least that was the case as of a few hours ago. It may be that there has been an official statement made since then, but I'm not aware of any. Now, The U.S. Arab dictatorship escalating aggressions against the axis of resistance, in my view, make the closure of the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, which connects the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden, a virtual uncertainty, a virtual inevitability at this stage. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet. When I say closure, I want to be clear that typically Ansar Allah has not restricted all traffic through the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. What it does is it restricts what it regards as complicit maritime traffic. So these would be vessels of the United States, Israel, affiliated with the United States or Israel, traveling to or from ports in the genocidal Israeli entity, principally the Eilat port, but also any Mediterranean ports. And the vessels probably of other Western nations, affiliated with other Western nations, would also be subjected to a partial closure of the Bab al-Mandeb Strait because of the complicity of Western nations in the genocidal crimes of Israel and the United States. So if that hasn't happened already, I think it is very likely to happen in the near immediate future, which is going to greatly exacerbate the already highly elevated risk of a global economic crisis because of the importance of the goods, both commodities and finished goods that are transported through the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, either coming from the Suez Canal or heading towards the Suez Canal and ultimately into the Mediterranean. So if the world has to deal with the closure of both the Strait of Hormuz and that strait simultaneously, we are going to be in a world of pain, especially if those closures persist for a significant period of time. Now, as I mentioned at the outset, the war in Iran has escalated to new heights in at least one other respect. On Monday of this week, local media reported that Iranian projectiles fired by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps of Iran had struck a U.S. Navy logistical hub in Oman that handles fuel resupply operations. My understanding is that those U.S. facilities in Oman had not been targeted up until now. The fact that Iran is willing to now target those facilities in Oman will, I think, should be taken as an expression of Iranian government discontent with the Omani regime's more recent forms of cooperation with the United States. And by that, I'm referring specifically to the opening up of an alternative route for traffic through the Strait of Hormuz that hugs the Omani coastline. And that alternative route was established with the consent and cooperation of the Omani regime and was intended to subvert Iranian control over the Strait of Hormuz. And make no mistake that Iran's ongoing control of the Strait of Hormuz is of existential importance to Iran. If it loses control of the Strait of Hormuz, and I'm quite sure that it won't, despite all of the violence, its negotiating position would be greatly weakened, and it would become much more vulnerable to the genocidal warfare of Israel and the United States. It is the control of the Strait of Hormuz by the Iranian military is the best protection by far that Iran has from its own destruction at the hands of the U.S. and Israeli regimes. So the Omani regime now has a new reality to deal with because of its own complicity in these crimes and its refusal to do, frankly, what would be in the interest of its own people, namely to set up a management regime within the Strait of Hormuz that results in vessels going through the strait having to pay a reasonable fee to Oman and Iran. Its refusal to cooperate in that regard is making it a legitimate target because, after all, as I say, the U.S. military is using Omani facilities to carry out its crimes against the Islamic Republic of Iran. So I do understand and agree that the Omani regime is stuck between a rock and a hard place. After all, when it indicated, albeit in diplomatic language, that it was going to cooperate with Iran, the psychopath in the White House openly threatened to blow up Oman. But there's a simple solution here. Maybe it's not so simple, but it is a solution for the Omani regime, and that is to bring to an end the U.S. military presence in Oman, which is its sovereign right. If it's unwilling to do that, and it's going to try to weaken the greatest form of leverage that Iran has to protect itself, it should not be surprised if it becomes a party to this war, at least in the sense that U.S. facilities on its territory are going to be attacked. I think we're probably going to see a lot more of this in the future to the detriment of the interests of the Omani people. Now, it is certainly not Oman alone that has had to face these attacks or U.S. military facilities within Oman. The Iranian military has continued to strike U.S. bases in many other parts of the region as well, as retaliation for the ongoing U.S. strikes on southern Iran. So let's start by looking at a statement by the IRGC about its military activities over the past 1 to 2 days. And here is an IRGC statement number 5, destruction of American military facilities and infrastructure in Bahrain and long-range radar systems in the Sultanate of Oman. The decisive and powerful operations carried out by the Iranian armed forces have left the American military in a state of helplessness. In its latest attacks, the American military targeted an agricultural water pumping station in the city of Mashhad, a move that, according to the statement, demonstrates its hostility toward the people. Of course, they're referring here to the people of Iran. In addition to targeting American military facilities and infrastructure in the Jufair area of Bahrain, where fires are still burning, the IRGC Navy carried out the 5th phase of reciprocal operations, launching missile and drone strikes against the FPS long-range early warning radar and a maritime surveillance radar in the Sultanate of Oman, destroying both systems. The reopening of the Strait of Hormuz to maritime traffic remains contingent upon the cessation of what was described as American military interference in the strait and respect for the sovereignty of states over their territorial waters. The continuation of such interference will lead to greater repercussions for the global oil and gas sectors. And indeed, they have already led to greater repercussions. I'll get to that in a few minutes. Now, the various video have emerged of the aftermath of these Iranian strikes on the Arab Gulf dictatorships. So let's start with this one. This is smoke rising from the U.S. naval facility in Bahrain. And here's another video which shows that all, or at least a large part of Bahrain, became pretty much engulfed in smoke as a result of these attacks. Let's watch that one more time. You can see that the building, the infrastructure there is barely visible through the heavy haze of smoke. Now, the Iranians have published video of their missile and drone launches towards certain of these targets. Now, it's by no means only Bahrain and Oman that have been struck. There was quite an interesting strike, a very important strike potentially, by the Iranian military on the U.S. Military base, or one of the U.S. military bases in Kuwait. That base and that country have been used by the Americans repeatedly during this criminal war of aggression to launch land-based missiles into Iran, oftentimes striking civilian infrastructure and or killing civilians. And so finally, the Iranians decided they were going to target these missile systems. And I'm referring here in particular to the HIMARS missile system, which is the one that has been used, is the most important ground-based missile system that has been used against Iran in bases situated in the Gulf autocracies. And I want to start by showing you here a video of what reportedly is the aftermath of that strike, which not only destroyed the system, but also HIMARS ammunition. Now, in addition to Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman, and of course the Yemeni strikes on Saudi Arabia, the Iranian military has also struck Jordan, U.S. military facilities within Jordan. And here is a statement by the Iranian military in that regard, which I think is quite interesting for its commentary towards the people of Jordan. The IRGC pointed out at the beginning of the statement, and it's addressing itself here to the honorable and Muslim people of Jordan. It started by saying that at dawn today, during the third phase of the second wave of Operation Victory 2, under the slogan Vengeance for Hussein, peace be upon him, the fighters of Islam targeted key facilities and an American military position at an air base occupied by the child-killing American military on your soil, which had been used to launch attacks against us. Using ballistic missiles, they inflicted upon the American criminals the punishment for their crimes. On the first day of the war, the arrogant American administration used these same bases to massacre 168 innocent school children and their teachers in Manab. And I think this is the most interesting part of the statement. Quote, "You know well that we are not hostile toward your country. On the contrary, we hold your noble people in the highest regard. More than any other nation, you understand the suffering and oppression of the Palestinian people, and you are fully aware of the crimes committed by the Zionist regime in killing 70,000 Palestinians, including 20,000 children in Gaza with the direct involvement of the United States. Your determined demand for the removal of the occupying American bases from the region is a significant contribution to saving the Palestinian people and restoring security to the region." Just by way, parenthetically, what I think they're referring to here is that a very substantial portion of the Jordanian population is in fact Palestinian. And I've been to Jordan during the genocide. I can tell you that there's tremendous sympathy amongst ordinary citizens there, not just the Palestinian population, but amongst the whole of the population. There's a tremendous amount of sympathy for the Palestinian struggle, but this so-called King of Jordan brutally suppresses any meaningful support for the Palestinian resistance movement. And as a result, the only thing standing in the way of the intervention, I think, of the people of Jordan in this criminal war of aggression, the kind of intervention that we have seen from, for example, South Lebanon, is the brutal, corrupt puppet of the Washington, the King of Jordan, the so-called King of Jordan. But what I find most interesting about this statement and similar statements that the Iranian military and government have made in the past is the revolutionary tenor of these statements. They clearly are looking for regime change inside the Gulf Arab autocracies and are doing what they can to promote it. So they would like to see revolutionary forces unleashed, as would, frankly, much of humanity in the broader region of West Asia, so that this cancer, this washed-in cancer, can finally be excised from the region once and for all. And if that were to happen, if the U.S. military forces would be successfully removed from the region, it would all be over for the genocidal pipsqueak Israel, which is nothing more than an extension of the U.S. military, a giant U.S. military base masquerading as a country, and Washington's rabid attack dog in the region. So we shall see whether the kinds of unrest we have seen inside Bahrain, a majority of whose population is Shia, will begin to emerge in countries such as Jordan. As I say, that would be a wonderful development for the region if it resulted in the removal of U.S. military forces and the founding of truly democratic governments across the broader region of West Asia. So how is all of this affecting the situation in the Gulf? Well, there have been more attempts by complicit shipping to transit through the Strait of Hormuz without the cooperation of the Iranian military. And as one would expect, that complicit shipping is paying a heavy price. Here is a statement from Geopolitics Prime, a resistance channel, about what are almost certainly Iranian attacks on two tankers near the Strait of Hormuz. The UK Maritime Transportation Authority reported a tanker hit by an unknown projectile 40 nautical miles northeast of Kalhat, Oman, with the projectile striking the vessel's starboard side engine room. And the UAE Ministry of Defense said that two UAE tankers, Mombasa and Bahia, were targeted by Iranian cruise missiles in the southern passage of the Strait of Hormuz in Omani territorial waters. It's very clear, if these reports are accurate, that Iran is going to assert control over the entirety of the strait, and with or without the cooperation of the Omani regime. And the UAE Ministry of Defense, according to this report by Geopolitics Prime, said that the fires broke out on both tankers and were later brought under control. One Indian crew member, they say, was killed, and 8 others were injured, including 4 seriously. Iran, according to Geopolitics Prime, is showing it can hit back where it hurts. Maritime traffic tankers in the Gulf's fragile sense of security. So let me say that I want to talk briefly about this whole notion of control of the Strait of Hormuz. You know, in a way, that is misframing the question. When we ask the question, who controls the Strait of Hormuz and who will be able to control the Strait of Hormuz in future, it's not necessary that Iran, have an iron grip of control over the entirety of the strait in order for it to achieve its larger purposes of deterring attacks on the country. All it has to do is to generate, through missile and drone attacks and attacks by fast naval vessels and perhaps through the laying of mines, it has to generate enough risk to maritime transportation through the Strait of Hormuz that shipping companies are deterred from sending their vessels through the strait. If they can create enough risk to deter maritime transportation through the Strait of Hormuz, then whether or not they have complete control over the strait, they will effectively achieve their objective of inflicting damage, enough damage on the global economy to force the Americans to stop attacking their country. So that is a relatively low bar for the Iranian military to have to meet, given its military capabilities. No matter what the US does, it will continue to create so much risk within the Strait of Hormuz that there will be, if not a complete cessation of maritime transportation through the strait, certainly a dramatic reduction of maritime transportation through the strait. And as long as there is a dramatic reduction, even if it isn't a total cessation of movement through the strait, then the situation in global oil markets will continue to worsen. And not just in global oil markets, but in the market for fertilizer, in the market for helium, in the market for sulfur, sulfuric acid, all of these commodities that are extremely important to the global economy will continue to be in short supply. So this is not a battle that the United States can win, no matter what Donald Trump says. And this is something which I think the global oil market is coming to understand, albeit belatedly, because we can see over the last couple of days that there has been a dramatic increase in the price of oil again. This is from the oilprice.com website. As of a couple of hours ago, the price of Brent crude had shot up another 4% today, trading at nearly $87. I believe it was trading, I saw just a quick report just before I began this report indicating it had gone above $87. So it had gone down to the low 60s and is now shot up to the high 80s. And where it's going to go from here is anybody's guess. But given the situation in the Strait of Hormuz and the escalation of these wars and the possible closure, imminent closure of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, probably the price of oil is going to go a hell of a lot higher in the days and weeks ahead. Meanwhile, the gangster Donald Trump has proclaimed that the Gulf autocracies that use the Strait of Hormuz will have to pay huge protection money to his Washington-based mafia. Here is a statement that he just put it out yesterday, in fact, on Truth Social. And the orange lunatic in the White House wrote that the Hormuz Strait is open. This is, of course, nonsense. There's virtually no traffic going through the Strait of Hormuz. And he says it will remain open with or without Iran. We are reinstating the Iranian blockade. So there you have it, folks. The one and only benefit that Iran had acquired from signing the MOU, which is to say a lifting of the blockade and a reestablishment of its ability to sell its oil, has been snatched away from it. There is now no benefit whatsoever to Iran complying with any aspect of the Memorandum of Understanding. And so the gangster went on and wrote that the Iranian blockade is so named because it is only stopping Iran ships or customers from entering or leaving. All other countries will have fair and open use of the strait. Delusional, let me say, that's outright delusional. The USA will be from this point forward known as the guardian of the Hormuz Strait, but as such and as a matter of fairness will be reimbursed at the rate of 20% on all cargo shipped for any and all costs necessary to do the job of providing safety and security to this very volatile section of the world. The process and formation will begin immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So it is most ironic that as Narco Rubio, Trump's Secretary of State, is whining about the supposed illegality of the fees that Iran wants to charge to vessels going through the Strait of Hormuz, his own boss, Donald Trump, is proclaiming that the United States is going to charge an extortionate fee for providing protection, or so it's claimed, for vessels transiting through the Strait of Hormuz. As we've seen from these attacks that just occurred within the past 24 hours, the ally of the United States, the UAE, has said its vessels were attacked. So what protection is Donald Trump talking about? He is utterly incapable of providing any protection, but even if he were, 20% is an absolutely extortionate fee for him to be paying, and one which, according to his own Secretary of State, would violate international law. Now, here's some additional commentary that the mafioso offered to the media to explain his position about the Strait of Hormuz.
And we're not going to put it up. Yeah, I want to be reimbursed because we're protecting a very rich portion of the world. We're spending money. And so what we've done is we are going to be reimbursed for protection. We're protecting by the countries that we're helping. For instance, you look at the 5 countries. You have Saudi Arabia, you have UAE, you have Qatar, or Qatar as I always say, you have Qatar, Bahrain, and by the way, you have others. You have Kuwait, and you have others, and they will do very well. But we think it's appropriate that we don't need them. You know, we have more oil than any other country in the world. When you add Venezuela, which has been amazing, which has tremendous amounts of oil that we control. When you add Venezuela and everything else, we have more than 50% of the world's supply. We don't need it.
Yeah, this man is delusional. First of all, even assuming that the U.S. has effective control over Venezuela's oil, and if it does, that really is a raging indictment of the current government of Venezuela, I must say. But let's put that aside. Even if it has complete control over the oil of Venezuela, it does not have control over more than 50% of the world's oil supply. What drug is this man smoking? I guess unless you include all of the oil of West Asia, if he thinks that they control all of that oil, maybe you can get to over 50%. But I think there may be a number of governments in the region who would dispute that the United States effectively controls its oil. And in any case, the control of that oil is not going to prevent a dramatic increase in the price of oil. If the global supply of oil is dramatically reduced, then there is going to be inevitably sharp increases in the price of oil. And that is going to have highly negative impacts, not just on countries outside of the West, but on the United States itself. And we've already seen that in the form of inflation and increased prices at the gas pumps. But in any event, um, let's remember that before this criminal war of aggression began, before it was launched by the United States and Israel, no one, including Iran, was talking about charging any fees to any vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz. Iran decided to charge fees as a result of the war of aggression on its country, which virtually the entire West and the Gulf Arab dictatorships have supported. It takes, I would submit, a special kind of chutzpah to provoke a crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, as Trump did, and then demand payment from your so-called allies for resolving that crisis by seizing control of the Strait of Hormuz from Iran. And what's even more absurd about this situation is, as I argued, that the U.S. will not ultimately be able to take control of the strait. So Trump's bluster about a 20% fee will go nowhere. However, what Trump's declaration that they're going to charge a 20% fee has done is completely discredit the position taken by his Secretary of State that the imposition of a toll would be illegal. And it has also made the Iranian government look extremely reasonable by comparison. Here is a post put out by the Iranian foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, after the Trump statement. And as you will see, the Iranian foreign minister is pointing out that the deal on offer from Iran is much more favorable. He wrote yesterday on X, POTUS, the President of the United States, is absolutely right. Whoever provides secure and safe passage of commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz should be compensated for the service. Iran has always been the guardian of the strait and will remain so forever. 20% is, of course, too much. We will be fair. And the fee that the Iranian government has been talking about, which is, I believe, in the range of $1 million per vessel, would amount to about 1 to 2% of the value of the cargo of these large tankers, and as opposed to 20%. So, as I said, by comparison, the demand of Trump is truly extortionate. And this new proclamation from the White House that the United States is going to be charging 20% is not only completely unachievable as a practical matter, but has simply discredited the United States government even further. Now, I must conclude this report with a reminder. And my reminder is that 5 days before the Memorandum of Understanding was signed a couple of weeks ago, I put out this statement on X. Everybody at that point in time, including Mario Nafal, was well, not everybody, but a lot of people in the alternative media were expressing a hope, if not an outright expectation, that the war had come to an end, the United States had capitulated, and that we could now all clasp hands together and sing Kumbaya. And in that setting, I put out this statement 5 days before the MOU was signed and wrote that there's no peace deal. There won't be a peace deal. Even if they sign something, it won't be worth toilet paper because Trump and Netanyahu will both sabotage it. We should stop fixating on this absurd circus and focus on what the child murdering Israelis are doing to Palestine and Lebanon. Now, I'm not showing you this to toot my own horn. By the way, I don't regard it as having been prophetic or particularly insightful on my part that this was going to happen. I think it was absolutely obvious that it was going to happen. A child who was familiar with the record of treachery and lying of the Trump and Netanyahu regimes could have foreseen that this MOU was going to be treated by the Trump regime like toilet paper. And yet, a lot of wishful thinkers out there jumped on the, peace is at hand bandwagon and proclaimed that the war was effectively over. No, it is not over, not by a long shot, as we have all seen. And I would argue that it will not be over, at least until Iran and its allies have inflicted so much pain on the United States and the West, particularly pain of an economic nature, that they will be finally deterred and permanently deterred from attacking the Iranian state and also the allies of Iran in the region. And we're not anywhere close to that point yet. The United States economy has suffered some damage, but we are very far from the level of damage that would be necessary to incent a large proportion of the American population to demand relentlessly, vigorously, and in every way imaginable that the war be brought to an end. I think we're months away from that point, unfortunately. I hope that I'm proven wrong about that. But I think we are going to see a lot more war in the days and weeks ahead and a hell of a lot more damage to the global economy. One other piece of news I want to share with you before I sign off is a statement that was just put out by the genocidal Israeli military, acknowledging that the number of wounded in its ranks since the start of its genocidal offensive in South Lebanon has risen to 1,461, including 89 in critical condition and 165 in moderate condition. You should assume that these numbers are represent only a portion of Israel's real losses. They continue to mount, which may explain why, by the way, why Israel has not, at least publicly, taken part in the most recent round of attacks on Iran. It's at least, for the time being, sitting out this round of hostilities and leaving it entirely to the U.S. military to bear the burden of this war of aggression. In any case, my friends, that'll do it for today. We will be back to you tomorrow morning, perhaps later today, with a report, an interview of our good friend, the legendary Palestinian woman of resistance, Rehab Nazal, who is currently visiting Canada and has a harrowing story to recount of the suffering of a family whose members have been imprisoned by the genocidal Israeli military. For the time being, please stay safe, and that'll be our report today from Montreal, Canada on July 14th, 2026.